car behind me is a car known as Green Pea. It started life in 1922 as the first ever Aston Martin Grand Prix racer and was given the chassis number TT1. Well, really the interesting thing about this car is it's got a very long history, obviously, and one that's been handed down with some research on top. And luckily, the family that have owned the car for many, many years actually knew or met and got to know the first owner of the car. It's a lady called Marion Agnew, who married a man called Bobby and became Marion Morgan. And actually, in all the sort of time that passed, she couldn't actually remember exactly where the name came from. But of course, Green Pea, GP, and GP being a Grand Prix, so we believe that's possibly where the name came from. But the truth is, really, nobody really knows, and that's this typical bit of mystery that often surrounds stories that focus on Aston Martin. Green Pea first raced over 100 years ago, 1922, at the French Grand Prix. Grand Prix racing back then was very different to modern day Grand Prix. So to start with, there were 2 seats in the car because you had to have a driver and a riding mechanic. During the race, the mechanic's job was to pressurise the fuel system, but not only that, there weren't pit stops like we have today. So when the cars came in, the mechanic had to get out, put the fuel in the car, and he was responsible for fixing it if it broke down. So that's a very big difference to what we do in this day and age. Also, the surface of the road that the cars were racing on, they're public roads, very loose surfaces, very dangerous, and also over a much longer, greater distance than modern day Grand Prix. It was quite normal in those days to have a fairly large grid, maybe up to 20 cars, but only to have a handful of cars actually survive the race and finish. And in 1922, only 3 cars actually managed to finish the race. Our cars were also at a disadvantage. The formula for the race was really aimed at 2-litre engine cars, but our car was a 1.5 litre. So we had to carry a ballast to make up the difference in weight between us and the bigger 2-litre cars. So we were right off the bat on a disadvantage. We put up a valiant effort at the Grand Prix, and actually, although we failed to finish the Grand Prix, the amount of attention that the cars gained in the media of 1922 really helped cement the reputation of the company and the brand Aston Martin. And really, Aston Martin's always been about competition and motor racing, and that really got underway in a much more spectacular way in 1922 with this car. This car really from the outset was designed to be a focused racing car. So some of the features that were tried on this car became what was fitted to the road cars. So really there's an old adage about racing improves the breed, and never more was that true with Aston Martin. It's very much a case of developing racing cars that could then influence the road cars, and quite often the cars were actually the same. People would buy a car and race it and drive it on the road. So a little bit different when you look at modern day car technology and Formula One cars. But actually, if you think about it, a lot of technology starts off in Formula One and then finds its way into road cars. And with us, that is often aerodynamics. So a lot of the aero on the modern day Formula One cars will find its way into the road going Aston Martins.